starts off on a positive note of getting Lamar Jackson back Thursday night, which was great. He threw for 200 yards, did not look rusty at all. He only rushed for 15, but he didn't really need that. Lamar Jackson also threw for 4 touchdowns, 2 of which going to Mark Andrews. So guess who's back and relative again at the tight end position now that Lamar's back? Oh, wait, it's Mark Andrews. No kidding. I mean, the guy just catches touchdowns. It's Lamar's favorite guy in the red zone.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Listen, never understood a word he said, but it doesn't matter because he was able to walk into living rooms and get kids to sign. It's a little different situation with the NIL now, but the reality is he represents Louisiana. He is Mr. Louisiana. You should have never fired him to begin with in this spot. So, yeah, I hope they do reconsider and bring him back.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's a university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
ESPN Bet is no more, plus Stephen A. Smith's solitaire deal. Front Office Sports Today starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today, your look inside the stories shaping the business and culture of sports. This podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. Changing the game has always been our game. Access NASDAQ 100 companies in one ETF, Invesco Distributors, Inc. My name is Baker Machado. Coming up on the show, we're going to break down why former WNBA MVP Nneka Ogwumike is joining the new Global Women's League, Project B. And we're going to tell you about the 103-13 loss for the Bethesda women's basketball team. But let's start with the big news that ESPN is dropping their betting platform, ESPN Bet, in today's main event. Well, 2 years after making its debut, ESPN Bet is closing operations and winding down its 10-year, $2 billion deal with Penn Entertainment and will instead partner with DraftKings, who will become the new exclusive sportsbook and odds provider of ESPN. So let's bring in Front Office Sports Media and Entertainment reporter Ryan Glasspiegel. Glass, good to see you as always. So why did ESPN decide to shut down their own betting platform?
So I think this was a little bit of a you can't fire me, I quit situation. Eric Fisher, our talented veteran business writer, had covered this earlier this year where, Penn and ESPN had this 10-year, $2 billion deal with an opt-out clause, and ESPN Bet was not hitting the market share projections that Penn thought that it would hit when the two companies made this deal. And so I think ESPN saw the writing on the wall and said, we're not going to be in business with Penn that much longer. And they went, and in a very similar way to what Barstool did when Penn and Barstool split ways, ESPN went and arranged an endorsement deal with DraftKings, which is different in structure than this Penn deal, because for Penn, they're licensing the ESPN Bet name to Penn. With DraftKings, DraftKings is basically buying ads and sponsorship. But ESPN went and were like, okay, this is not going to last for the duration of this 10-year deal. It's clearly not working as well as everybody had hoped, and pivoted to one of the dominant players, and now they're going to be affiliated with DraftKings.
What I think is also interesting in this is ESPN, especially when they launched their new app, really went all in on ESPN Bet. Integrations within the app, in terms of what stories that you're reading. They had shows dedicated to betting and odds. So how is ESPN going to sort of wind this down? Do we know anything about this?
Well, I mean, they're going to continue this for the rest of the month, pushing ESPN Bet, and then the calendar is going to hit December, and you're going to start seeing DraftKings ads all over ESPN's TV and digital platforms. And so, I don't think there's going to be so much of a difference other than the fact that they are pushing somebody to an app that doesn't have the ESPN name. But I think anywhere where you see ESPN bet signage, or you go on the ESPN app and you see links to parlays or whatever, that's just going to say DraftKings now.
ESPN had a previous partnership with DraftKings. So I'm assuming, just based off of what you said, it's going to look exactly the same as it had been before.
Well, I think, they did have a previous partnership with them, but it wasn't as in your face and ramped up and all the time as the ESPN bet stuff is. I don't think that ESPN is going to go backwards in how much they talk about or market gambling. So I think there's probably going to be significantly more DraftKings integrations this time versus the last time around.
You don't think this has anything to do with the NBA gambling scandal involving?
It has nothing to do with that. It only has to do with money. They Penn signed a deal with ESPN that they weren't making enough money on. I think they said in their SEC filing today that they lost $1 billion on this deal. So I think both sides knew that it wasn't going to last much longer, and so they're just a fork in the road came and they're splitting.
You mentioned Penn obviously having a previous relationship with Barstool. I think they bought Barstool, sold it back to Dave Portnoy, I think for $1, and then partnered with ESPN. What does it sort of say about the state of Penn Entertainment? Because you can't get a bigger name and IP and stats and everything than ESPN. So what does it sort of say about the state of Penn?
These two deals failed for different reasons. I mean, with Barstool, I think for the amount that they paid and the market share they got, it was actually, I don't think it was profoundly disappointing at the very least, but the issue with Barstool that they kept running into was with regulators. They couldn't get regulated in New York. They got a real hard time in Massachusetts. I don't know if people remember this, but there used to be a big cat joke called a can't lose parlay. And the Massachusetts regulators just really belabored this as false advertising, when anybody familiar with Barstool would know that that was a joke. And so I don't think that Penn realized that the Barstool affiliation was going to gum them up with regulators. With ESPN, they thought that this would take their market share in online sports betting to something like 20%. I don't even think it's 5%. So it just did not grow the amount of users. And there can be all sorts of theories on why that is. But I mean, it's just it's interesting who can drive their audience to gambling apps and who can't. And I just think for as much reach as ESPN has, they don't have personalities necessarily that so Pat McAfee is on ESPN, but he did not go heavy into promoting ESPN Bet like he used to with FanDuel. He was a bell cow for FanDuel in the early 8 years of legalized online sports gambling. So it's tricky. And I think a DraftKings thing is better for ESPN because for the most part, everybody who's going to be an online gambler already has a DraftKings account. So instead of driving signups necessarily, they're going to be, increasing the awareness. DraftKings. And so people who are already users of it might have it in their mind to return. There's a whole different level of commitment of using an account that you already have versus launching a new one, another password to remember. Okay, they have my credit card too, or bank numbers or PayPal or whatever. It's a lot of people don't have 8 gambling apps.
Well, you segued perfectly into my next question, which is what does this sort of tell you about the state of these companies when FanDuel and DraftKings basically are still the behemoths that they are? Are they basically untouchable now in this industry?
The word sleeping giant, I think that like people in the gambling industry know about them, but the public may not realize what the setup Hard Rock has, where they've got a monopoly on Florida, which is a very heavy gambling state and high population. And so like the numbers for market share and how much is being bet aren't as public in Florida as they are in the other states where there's competition. But I think Hard Rock, if not right up there with them, then I think you could at least say they're a solid number 3. And then I would look at like the prediction markets, which Ben Horty and myself have been covering a lot. Robinhood, like whether it's through an affiliation with Kalshi or like they do something on their own, but like Robinhood is a monster. Look at all of the business, look at the amount of accounts they have, look at the amount of assets people have in their Robinhood accounts. They're going to be a dominant player in this space one way or another. And so the prediction market stuff, like we could do a whole half hour on whether they're legal or not, but right now they're running and Robinhood is a monster and Polymarket is coming too. So, you know, FanDuel and DraftKings have each done their own like dipping their toe in the prediction market waters. FanDuel has done a deal with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and DraftKings bought the Railbird Exchange, which is something that Ben and myself first reported on. And so right now they're saying, oh, well, we'll just use these prediction markets for non-sports. But if there's any type of like signal federally that prediction markets are totally a go, then FanDuel and DraftKings are going to be prepared there too.
Interesting. So more drama to come, basically, is what you're saying. More innings yet to be played. Ryan Glasspiegel, great analysis and insight as always. Ryan, thank you so much.
What have the Jays done all season long? And you've seen it, Kev, as a fan of the AL East. Yep. They get murdered or lose a heartbreaking game and come back and punch you in the face. They're not. It's what like the old Jays team used to fold, and that's what I used to hate about them. These guys are different. They're like guys you go to war with. It's like, man, you're my buddy. Like, let's go. Like their clubhouse dynamic. I've never seen a Blue Jay team where everyone gets along.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Apparently, he's a pretty darn good defensive coordinator. The 49ers are decimated by injury. This guy's doing it again. Wade Phillips, Norv Turner, all these guys, there's a lot of great coordinators out there. I'm not so sure Mike McDaniel isn't a real good coordinator, a run game coordinator, a quarterback coach with the 49ers during some Super Bowl years. Maybe he's just not built to be a head coach.
In-game live only on SportsGrid.
I think a divorce is coming. I don't think LeBron finishes the year with the LA Lakers. And the trump card he tried to play has backfired on him big time. And I'm here for all the smoke. I got my marshmallows, I got my skewers, I got the fireplace. I'm going to sit back, kicking my feet, and watch the LA dysfunction play out in real time.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Governor calls you out in a football state, you're out.
And it was so funny, too, because after he fired Kelly on Sunday, right, Woodward released a statement that said that, you know, in effect, that he was still in charge of the athletic department. Well, you didn't check with the governor because apparently he had other plans for the athletic department, and you're not in them.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and this podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. In football, changing the game begins with rethinking it, like rethinking how players work on their game. And with wearable tech, advanced analytics, AI, and more, the same innovative thinking that changes the game could also change your portfolio. Invesco QQQ gives you access to the innovators who are rethinking the world. Let's rethink possibility. Former WNBA MVP and current union president Nneka Ogwumike has signed a contract to become the very first player to join the international startup women's league Project B. She's going to receive an equity stake and a larger compensation package than what she gets in the WNBA. So let's bring in our women's sports reporter, Annie Constable. Annie, good to see you as always. So why did Nneka decide to join Project B?
Yeah, I mean, Nneka used to play overseas, so it's not uncommon to see Nneka or any other player of her caliber be playing all year round. But what's different here is the compensation package, which I've learned from multiple sources includes multiple seven figures in one single season. So one single year salary could be between $2 million, $4 million, maybe even $5 million for certain stars. Wow. And those packages could reach 8 figures over the course of multiple seasons. So that says a lot because of the pressure it obviously puts on the WNBA in the sense of what this league is currently able to offer its players in the midst of what we already know have been contentious CBA negotiations.
And we'll talk about that in a moment. Are we expecting other players to follow suit and follow her in joining this league? And is she allowed to, which I think she is, still do the WNBA in addition to this league?
Yes, so what we know is this season will not conflict directly with the WNBA in terms of its length. It starts in November, it concludes in April, which, similar to EuroLeague, has allowed players to play all season long between the WNBA in the summertime and EuroLeague in the fall, winter, spring. And this ecosystem has existed for as long as the WNBA has been in place since its inaugural season in 1997. What's different now, though, is that that ecosystem is getting crowded with now Project B, Unrivaled, and obviously Athletes Unlimited as well. So there's 3 now operable leagues that are giving players opportunities outside of the WNBA. And so the big question here is what the conflict is with these other leagues.
Well, also, are they competing against each other? So is Project B not just a threat maybe to Unrivaled, but is Project B a threat to the WNBA?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic question, and that's one that a lot of people are mulling over at this point. I've talked to multiple executives in the league who are already starting to question if and when Project B could become a significant threat to the WNBA. What is apparent right now is that this is kind of a period of question. What does this mean for the WNBA? Will this be an immediate threat? And at what point could it become a threat? And so what I'm learning is that if CBA negotiations don't go the way players expect them to or want them to, then it could turn into a situation where star players are considering opting out of the WNBA to prioritize other opportunities like Project B, which we've seen in the past. This is not uncommon. Diana Taurasi made waves in 2015 when she missed the WNBA season. She was paid by her EuroLeague team not to play in the WNBA. And so this could be a similar situation in the sense that, again, players are earning more outside of the WNBA.
Well, does Unrivaled, obviously we make a big deal about how much the players are making there, and these other leagues, does that sort of diminish fair pay within the WNBA, given the contract talks, because these players are making so much more money outside of it?
Yeah, it's honestly, there's so much to talk about here, right? Because to that point, players have for a long time spoken about the desire to just have one league, to play in one league that pays them well.
And that's what they do in the NBA?
Yes, it's so frustrating because if you look back at the NBA and the beginning of the NBA and the ABA were in competition. Does anybody know about the ABA? No, because they merged and it became the NBA. But the WNBA has never been able to offer players a substantial pay structure that warrants them prioritizing the WNBA above all else. EuroLeague has been in existence longer than the WNBA and has paid players better than the WNBA historically and has coexisted with the WNBA because of that fact. But still, over the course of the nearly 3 decades of the WNBA's existence, they still have not been able to offer players a salary that warrants them just prioritizing the WNBA. And the point we're getting to here is for the WNBA to continue growing, the goal is that this league not only pays its players a salary worth them solely playing in the WNBA, but the season lengthens to a point where it's not just the summer, it's extending from the spring into the fall.
So they can do these leagues because they're committed long-term to the league.
Long-term goal, the goal should be, and is expected to be, that the WNBA becomes a league and a space of competition that warrants players prioritizing it above all else, which would include the season expanding along with the salaries. But the salaries have not met that standard in the 3 decades of its existence. And so now what we're seeing is other leagues, on the heels of the excitement and the boom of women's sports, are popping up and they're taking advantage. And they're offering other opportunities, which are great for women. They're fantastic. But long term, what does it mean for the landscape of women's basketball to be diluted in this way? To have multiple leagues operating, running at the same point, which is the top dog?
It's a great point, and I think the other thing I think is interesting here is she's the current union president. She and Nafisa Collier and others are leading these conversations with the league right now during this collective bargaining agreement. What does this sort of say about the status of these talks if the union president is signing now with an international league?
Yeah, I mean, it's very calculated. It appears to be very calculated in the sense that this is the union president, and then beyond the union president, you have 2 vice presidents who last year launched a league of their own, and it certainly puts pressure on the WNBA in these negotiations because, again, the players leading these negotiations are getting what they're asking for from you guys elsewhere. And so again, to go back to that point of if CBA negotiations don't go the way players hope and expect them to, it could lead to players considering to opt out of the WNBA. Now, what kind of pressure that actually means for the WNBA, if it's one player, again, we've seen this in the past with Diana, the WNBA, the wheels kept turning, and she was the face of the league.
Yeah.
In order for a statement like that, in my opinion, to make waves, for that to truly have an impact on the WNBA players opting out, it would require multiple star players opting out of the WNBA for that to be a serious threat.
Annie Kospel, our women's sports reporter. Annie, thank you so much. We have a lot more Front Office Sports Today headed your way right after this quick break.
We now have to figure out if they will be in the playoffs. They're the Super Bowl favorite and have shorter odds to miss the postseason as you and I sit here right now.
Right, but let me ask you this. Do you feel after this 5-4 record, 9 weeks, 10 weeks of the regular season, that their defense is as dominant as it was last year?
No, but the offense is better.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
You want to throw $12, $13 million at Kiffin? That's always a possibility. Summerall, they lost the other night to, in that matchup to UTSA. Or do you go back to potentially the mad scientist and Nick Saban, give him, complete control of the athletic department and see if he can turn it around? We'll see. But whatever they go, they're going to need a coach to hit the ground running.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and let's get you caught up on some of the other stories we're following over at the FOS Water Cooler. And with that, let's head on over to our control room and bring in our senior producer, John James, who's going to chat these stories with me. John, good to see you, man. How you
What
doing?
do you think of the new background right now, Baker?
Loving this.
We're making the most of this 5-foot space that we're in right now. And trying to get a little look behind the scenes.
It shows people we actually have a real control room. You're not in like some random little place.
People were doubting.
Let's talk about some of these really interesting stories. And let's start with this one. I know you're going to love this one, James. Carolina Panthers running back Rico Dowdle said that he was fined for reenacting a famous Key and Peele sketch with his touchdown celebration on Sunday when he did 2 pelvic thrusts. Now, of course, that Key and Peele sketch joked that 2 thrusts was acceptable, but 3, that crossed the line and would warrant a flag. Now, Dowdle wrote on X, quote, "After much thought, I've launched a GoFundMe for my fines. Key says, I got 3 pumps, but I guess the NFL disagrees." Dowdle later said that the money raised would go to, from that GoFundMe would go to charity. But it's so funny when you watch this video, James, you can see on his face when he does the 2 pumps, he thinks, I'm okay. And then you see him running after the referee who throws the flag at him.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny that like it was super calculated. All of the teammates are around him saying 2. Everyone's seeing it. It's 2. That's the rule. And then the flag comes out anyway. And it reminded me of like that famous Rasheed Wallace ejection where Steve Smith is coming up to the ref and going, Steve, what do you mean? He didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing. Like all of his teammates, he's like, hey, I only did 2 pumps.
All right, meanwhile, after getting roasted on social media for playing solitaire during Game 4 of the NBA Finals, Stephen A. Smith has now joined mobile game company Papaya. This is the official ambassador for the first ever World Solitaire Championship this February. Calling the partnership with Stephen A. natural, Papaya says players from around the world will compete at the first ever global competition for solitaire. They say, quote, this will transform one of the world's most iconic casual games into a thrilling cultural event. Look, I have played a lot of solitaire on planes. It gets me through the flight, but I don't know if I would ever call it exciting to watch this.
Well, I personally, I didn't even realize that people still played solitaire besides my grandmother. So Stephen A. Smith and my grandma, maybe they're facing off in one of these games, or maybe not, Baker, because apparently the company Papaya Games is also being sued right now by users who say that they were actually put into games with bots instead of human players in a way that affected the outcome of the game, win or lose. The exact quote is, although they initially denied the factual basis of the claim, they no longer dispute that at one time it pitted human players against computer-controlled adversaries, some used to fill tournaments that had insufficient human players. Others were deployed to guarantee a specific outcome, win or loss, for a particular player. A lot of scandals involving gambling right now, Baker. Maybe solitaire now getting some bad press, too.
Meanwhile, here's a game you'll love. Bethesda University's women's basketball team lost to Cal State Northridge this week. Get this, 103-13. They were down 72-0 with a little more than 4.5 minutes left in the third quarter. The Athletic says it was actually just a miracle that Bethesda could even field 5 players for the game, as a stomach virus sidelined most of the team, including their assistant coach. And the players they could field, James, only one was a traditional starter, and the other one had never even played organized basketball before.
That is insane to me. They literally just pluck someone off the campus.
Just go. Just go.
Get on in here. This sounds a lot like some of my AAU games back in the day where I was on the losing end of like a 90-10, basketball game back in the day. The sentiment that I saw around this story is like, there's a lot of pride among the school, even though they got blown out as bad as they did, they finished the game and they showed up. So that means something, especially at the college level.
Absolutely. All right, let's see what we're watching tonight on this Thursday. We got Thursday Night Football. The Raiders are in the Mile High City to take on the Broncos tonight. The Broncos 7-2 and are favored in that game. That game at 8:15 on Prime Video. Meanwhile, we got some college football tonight. University of Texas San Antonio taking on South Florida. That's at 7:30 on ESPN. And then we got only one NBA game tonight. It's the Clippers and the Suns. Not the best of games, but that's over on NBA TV. Are you watching any of these tonight?
I will not be watching the game on NBA TV. I've kind of decided that I'm like kind of anti-NBA TV. I don't really like the local feel of the broadcast on a national channel. So I like when you have national games on ESPN and on Amazon and on NBC. Like, it just feels like a spectacle, and the local doesn't really do that for me. So I will not be watching that. I probably will be watching your Broncos tonight on Amazon Prime. It feels like a trap game for the Broncos, honestly. 7-2, they're playing great. Divisional game, though, here against an opponent that only has 2 wins on the year. That's going to be tough. So I imagine that's going to be a pretty good game, and we'll see what Al Michaels, flubs on tonight because he's been kind of having a rough go about it lately.
I'm glad you mentioned this could be a trap game for the Broncos because the one team besides the Chiefs that's their biggest rival is the Raiders, and the Raiders always show up no matter how bad or good they are against the Broncos. So I think this could be an upset.
Those AFC divisional games are always super tough. You think it's the Chiefs every year, but if you look back at the stats over the past couple of years, those are always tight games. So I'm sure it's going to be a good one.
By the way, there's also a wicked sing-along on NBC tonight, so you know what else I'll be watching after the Broncos game. Shames, thank you as always, man.
Yeah, great to see you, man.
And thank you at home for watching. We'll see you next time for more Front Office Sports Today.